Hello everybody, Hayden Klein here from HK Digital Reviews, and I'm here today, finally, with the review of the new Tool album, Fear Inoculum. I cannot tell you how long I have been waiting for this album to come out. Now, I haven't really been waiting the entire 13 years that a lot of other fans have had to wait for this album to come out. But when I started becoming a big fan of them in about 2010 or so, which would have been 9 years ago, I was really happy with what I was hearing. And of course, I was thinking, all right, I like Tool a lot. They're one of my favorite bands. I'm hoping that they'll have new music soon, right? Right, 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 right. Well, that was not the case. We did not get new Tool music soon at all, and I had to wait 9 years for myself personally for this new release to come out, and it's titled Fear Inoculum. So let's just talk about Tool for a quick second here. We have a band who started off as mainly alternative metal. That was their niche, from the Opiate EP to the Undertow Undertow album. Actually, that was a full-length project, which was specifically alternative metal. There wasn't really much of a progressive influence. There was a little bit of a technical thing going on with their sound, but it was definitely not like what we would hear later on with the album Enema, which is an absolutely phenomenal, unbelievable record. One of my personal favorites of all time. Every track and interlude in that thing is just absolutely perfect. I honestly don't know how much bigger praise I can give for that. Maybe I'll talk about the album in a classic review or some shit. And they also have the album Lateralis, which is easily their biggest project. Not my favorite, but their biggest songs that they've had yet are on that, like the title track Lateralis, which is honestly probably their most popular song that they have made. And then we also have tracks like Parabole/Parabola, which fantastic music, fantastic songs. Schism with one of my favorite bass lines ever with that. The Grudge. There's just so many absolutely fantastic songs on the album as well. And then they also released the album 10,000 Days, which, again, absolutely phenomenal. There's some tracks like the Wings for Mary track I'm not the biggest fan of. It's a very heartwarming, or not heartwarming, but a very, I guess, emotional track. Very sad one because it's about the Tool's frontman's mother's death and stuff like that. But besides that, there's still a lot of songs in that I like Vicarious, Zombie, The Pot, and Rosetta Stone, which I personally think is Tool's best song to date. But that's just my opinion. Right into another fantastic track from the album. But anyways, something about this discography of theirs that I have noticed is that with every single release, their music has been getting more mature sounding, no matter what. And yeah, that could be due to the fact that they are getting older in age, no question about that. But I was still kind of interested with how this is. Like, their music was starting to get a little bit longer. Each and every release, the music was starting to creep up. Now, yes, they like songs like Third Eye Blind from their Third Eye Blind. Did I just really say that? Tracks like Third Eye, No Blind, where these guys went out to 15-minute long song lengths. But with their 10,000 Days album, they even had a couple of songs that did go past the 10-minute mark. So their music was ever so consistently getting longer as each went. And they were starting to do a little bit more with their sound. I mean, they never went away from the Tool sound. Tool is Tool. That's not going to change. And with this album, Fear Inoculum, coming up, I know for a fact there's just so much hype put on this thing, alright? The amount of hype that was put on this album kind of by me, but by all the other Tool fans/stans that are out there, it was gonna be impossible for Tool to reach these expectations, and I kind of knew that, but still, did they at least come close to getting those expectations? Yeah, but did they get to those expectations? Hell no. But listen, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In order for them to reach these expectations, they would have first had to have made this album their best album yet. Which, when you have albums like Enema and Lateralis, you're not gonna do that. That was your heyday. You will never release music as phenomenal like that again. You can still release absolutely fantastic music, but you're not gonna release stuff like that ever again. And not only that, with the excruciatingly high amount of hype that was given to this thing, they would have also had to create one of the best albums of all time, period. And that means they would have to compete with like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, or compete with My Bloody Valentine's Loveless, or Mad Villain's Mad Villainy, and stuff like that. And no, they're not going to do that. And I knew that going into this. So as I'm saying that, I will be happy to report that I am still very, very, very happy with this album. So one thing I'm just going to get out of the way right now, so I don't have to like mention it over and over throughout this entire video, because it's just consistent throughout, and that is Maynard James Keenan's vocals and lyrics. Consistently throughout this album, I am in love with everything that he does. I love his vocals. He may not be doing any screaming on this project like he's done on other projects. I mean, it's not like he's a screamer vocalist anyways. Whenever he's ever screamed on a song, it's like one or two songs on the album for small parts. But on this one, he never actually does go into that extremely anger-filled, screaming kind of voice. And that's fine. I didn't really care if he did that or not, because when it comes to Tool, I really care more about the instrumentation. I mean, I do love his vocals, don't get me wrong. Maynard James Keenan, I think it says his name right. I don't know why I wouldn't say his name right. Is one of my favorite vocalists, period. Hands down. No question about it. I love his vocals on his other projects as well, like, A Perfect Circle or Pussifer. I like what he does on those too. So I knew coming into this thing I was going to like what he put on this project. And yeah, I was correct. I did. I really do like what he did on this project. The entirety of this project starts off with the title track Fear Inoculum, which at first, when I first heard this track, when it was just a single, I was a little bit indifferent to it, but I listened to it about 2 more times immediately after it and realized that I actually absolutely love this track especially. This track starts off like most Tool tracks do, at least in their later stages of their career, which is, it's got build up. It starts off as some kind of like slightly ambient kind of sound, maybe, I guess you could call it, and it starts to build up a little bit over time. Except with this track, it never really does go full force like into like a breakdown like the older stuff from Tool has before. So it's kind of more of an easygoing track on this thing, which is not a bad thing in my opinion. I've actually grown to appreciate and love a lot more of Tool's more dynamics, I guess, rather than the ultimate climatic breakdown that usually happens with Tool songs. And this song basically is kind of like that. I'm not saying that it's just like always calm. The choruses have a little bit of an oomph to them. The bridge sections towards the end or start to get more aggressive and stuff like that. And it all leads to a pretty aggressive ending to this, a pretty aggressive climactic ending that I do like a lot on this track. So it's a great opening track, really. I mean, I can see why people are a little bit underwhelmed by this opening track by itself. But I think in tied with the rest of the album, I think it actually fits a lot better. And I actually do think it does sound quite a bit better as well. The next song we have is the track Pneuma. Now this one is very like older school Tool-esque, and not like Enema old school, but it sounds like something that could have been off like Lateralis or something like that. But I still do love this track a lot actually. The bass line that comes in towards the beginning of the song sounds fantastic. I absolutely love what it sounds like there. The guitarist Adam Jones is fantastic with his guitar work. I've always liked Adam Jones' work on Tool. I don't think there's one time where I think that his guitar work was weak in any way, shape, or form. That's definitely, again, not the case with this album whatsoever. And again, I think the song structure is great. I think that it transitions pretty well. I absolutely love towards the end how the guitar just takes more of a focal point, where it's just the guitar going, everything else is just stopped. And his guitar is just chugging and raging, and I absolutely love it. And in the production too, when the drums finally hit and the bass finally hits with that guitar, it just sounds so good. It sounds extremely powerful, so just in your face. It's one of those breakdown moments in Tool songs that you do expect. And the stuff leading up to it, to me, is just as good, though. Like, I absolutely love the build-up. I love the chorus. Maynard's voice on this song, too, just sounds fantastic. I mean, yeah, the song's great. And I kind of question exactly why people dislike this track, to be honest with you. I don't get it. I've heard a couple critics that say it's kind of long-winded and not inventive in any way. And yeah, I get it. It does sound like Tool, but it's fucking Tool. All right, listen. Tool has a unique sound that I think gives them a pass on having to change their sound like big time from album to album. They can make minuscule changes and get away with it because nobody's creating music like they are. Just nobody. No other band's doing it. Not a single other band is even come close to doing anything similar to what Tool's doing. So I personally have no problem if their sound sounds very similar to their older stuff, because I honestly wouldn't want it any other way. I don't know why any Tool fan, a big Tool fan especially, would want Tool to be trying to reinvent themselves, especially at this stage in their career. They're just trying to get up there in age, and they can probably only release maybe one more album, and if we're lucky, two more albums before they're gonna call it quits. And that's hoping that everybody stays healthy. So I just want Tool music. I don't want inventive something that completely changes their style. I want minuscule changes that continue to mature their music. And with this song, I find that to be the truth. So, yeah, Pneuma. The next track we have on this album is the track Invincible, which I was waiting to listen to this track because I heard the live version of this track and I was in love with it ever since I heard it, and now that it's on here in a studio release, I'm in love with this track. This track is fantastic in many ways, and I guess you could say like the first 7 minutes or so of this track may not be the most interesting thing Tool's ever done. It is kind of slower pace building up. However, again, I do like the structure and the songwriting that's in it. You do have moments of aggressiveness and intensity that do happen, whether it be during the choruses or whatnot, or like little like bridge or refrains are going on in the middle of it. But once we hit about the 7.5 to 8 minute mark, Adam Jones has this simple yet heavy guitar riff that I don't know what it is about it, but like hypnotizes me in a way. And it does remind me a lot of the zombie guitar riff too. But it still has its own unique twang to it. Like, it still sounds different. And I absolutely love it. And again, once again, they put it to a point where the only thing happening is this guitar riff, and I absolutely love it. I love it with every inch of my being. And then the vocal effects that are on Maynard's voice during this point are just incredible. I absolutely love the effect that's put on his voice during this part of the song. Absolutely fantastic. And the synths, which is something that's kind of new, really, when it comes to Tool music, they sound awesome, actually. They sound really awesome on this song, mixed with that guitar. And then it starts kind of building up a little bit more until we get more of a breakdown with the drums. And the drums are not doing anything special. They're actually extremely simple going with this guitar. But I guess I kind of do wish Danny Carey would have done something a little bit more interesting in this part of the song, but I can't say anything because I personally don't know how I would have made this part of the song sound better. I just think it could, but personally I don't. And this is really the only time Danny Carey kind of disappoints me on this project. Other than that, he is completely balls to the wall fury, and I would not want to be any different. But just this one little time, slightly disappointed, but I can't think of it a way it could sound better personally, so I'm not going to be too mad about it. Still love the riff so much. And then, of course, like most of the Tool songs you hear, it builds up to the finish being pretty climatic, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And again, another thing to keep in mind is that every single track on this album is over 10 minutes long. Not every track, every actual song, unless you include Chocolate Chip Trip, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But most of these songs are at least 10 minutes in length, which is, even for Tools, a little bit crazy. Usually they have 5 to 8 minute long songs, and then have a couple songs that break the 10-minute point to have all your songs reach 10 minutes plus 13 minutes, 14 minutes, even one track here almost hits 16. It's a little bit, it's pretty crazy. In a way, it's kind of crazy for him to do that, but also at the same time expected. The next actual song that actually appears on this album is the track Descending, which I think is the one time I will say on this entire project where I think that some of the stuff in the middle could have been condensed down to make the song a little bit shorter, because it does kind of seem a little bit bloated after you get to about the 7 to 8 minute long point. Because it kind of goes back. I think that's the point when it kind of goes back to the main bass line on this song, which is not a bad thing. The bass line is actually fantastic. I absolutely love the sound of it. It's got a nice effect that's put onto it. I'm not too sure exactly what that effect is. Still love it though anyways. But I kind of feel like there was a point on this track particularly that they could have maybe toned down, made it a little bit shorter and more compact. The climax point of this song though at the end is probably the best, is one of the best on the album at least. I absolutely love the guitar riff that comes in towards the end. The drumming again is just spot on. Again, Denny Carey really was impressive as hell on this album. He did everything perfect. The drum fills were insane. Yeah, so yeah, it all worked out to be pretty good in the end. And I do love how the bass on this song at parts is very psychedelic-like. Like, they've been kind of doing that with the recent stuff, and it just really shows more again here, especially when the intro. And the intro kind of starts off with like this noise that kind of starts sounding like nature a little bit, and all of a sudden the bass comes in. It just sounds perfect. It's just so perfect at the beginning there. But yeah, this track is a great track still, but there is a point in this track where I'm like, all right, you don't really need to do this again. Let's just kind of keep going with this song now. This 13-minute song probably could have been like a 10, 11-minute song. And I've gotten I think a better reaction out of me personally. But yeah, Descending's still a great track. Love the climatic finish. They definitely didn't go back on that. They still definitely had that in their repertoire. The next track, Culling Voices, is actually, I think, probably the most unique sounding track on this entire project. It actually goes against this formula that was going on with the first 4 actual songs on this project. This one, like over the first half of it, is a little bit slower and more calmed down. However, you can definitely tell it's building up in the background. The guitar riff is sounding a little bit nastier than it had in the other 4 songs. You can definitely tell it's going to be. And then when it finally hits, yeah, it's a great breakdown. This is probably my personal favorite breakdown on the album because it's the most unique sounding. It actually, the guitar tone on this particular track sounds like it came from their Opiate EP. Like, just hands down. It's like they threw it back all the way back to the early 90s with this riff. Because the guitar tone just sounds so similar to something that you would have heard maybe off of like Hush or Sweat or something like that. One of those tracks from that EP. It sounds just like that. It's like one of their alternative metal only tracks that has a slight meditative psychedelic sense in the first 5 to 6 minutes of the track. And that part still sounds good. Again, don't get me wrong. I do love the slower parts of it as well. I have no problem with it. I like the track length. It's just over 10 minutes in length. And again, it's the last half of it's pretty climatic. I like this track a lot. Again, Maynard Granite drumming, great. Guitar riff, great. Bass line, great. I guess all those variables are basically consistent on this entire project, to be honest with you. I mean, I said it was just the vocals really, but looking back at it now, it's more than that. It's also mostly the instrumentals. After Culling Voices, we have this deep down the rabbit hole track called Chocolate Chip Trip. Yeah, that's the name of the song. That's what's named. It's its name. But anyways, now I don't know what the hell to classify this track is, because on the album, Tool said they had 7 songs. This is technically one of those 7 songs. However, it basically adds like an interlude, and a lot of people call it an interlude when paired with the other interlude tracks that are on this album. And I don't know what to call it, to be honest with you. But I absolutely love it. That's all I can really tell you. Now I can tell you more. This is one of the oddest sounding tracks Tool has ever made. Like, Easily. I'm not gonna say it's on like Dier von Sighten levels of like fucking weird, but this track is odd. It's very odd. We start off just sounding. It just starts off sounding very weird at first. It's just kind of like, I don't know. It just kind of in a way sounds goofy, but then the funhouse like synths that pop up about a minute and a half through this 5 minute long track have such a good rhythm to it, but they they sound so quirky. They sound so damn quirky, and I love it. I actually love it because here's the thing: you have to realize with Maynard James Keenan, with all three of his projects, he has a sense of humor with it. And Tool is definitely no different. And people often miss the humor parts of their band. Like, for instance, the track Intermission off the Enema project was a 50-second song that was legitimately like a keyboard that sounded like it came from a circus doing the rhythm to the next song that was coming up on that project, Jimmy. And it was funnier than hell after listening to a track that was titled Hooker with a Penis. It was a pretty funny track to have after that. And people have to realize Tool you can't take as seriously as people take them. You cannot. You cannot. You cannot. You cannot. Not everything has to be all full on serious intensely. You gotta be like focused on what the hell is going on. No, that's not it. And I think Chocolate Chip Trip is this album's intermission, honestly. And it's just so cool sounding, and I enjoy myself listening to the synth part. But then Danny fucking Carey, God, what a drummer! His drum solo on this song is freaking awesome. I absolutely love it. He just he just absolutely massacres the drums, and I absolutely love it. Like, this track is just perfect because again, the cool sounding rhythm synths. And then Danny Carey just going full force on his drums for about the last 2 minutes of the song. What else could I ask for from a Tool track? Like, this is the perfect Tool track, alright? Well, I mean, to be honest, if we're going to count this as a Tool song, it's probably the worst on the album. But at the same time, when I say that, I still love the track a lot. I really do. I absolutely love Chocolate Chip Trip. I listen to it a lot. It's probably one of my most listened tracks because, one, it is only 5 minutes long, and two, it is just jolly good fun, honestly, listening to it. It's a fun track. It's a silly, funny track. And again, that's what Tool does from time to time. It doesn't always have to be so serious as a fucking heart attack. And that's why I'm so glad that this track exists, because it just shows that even more, that these guys can be freaking goofy. So I don't know what to say. I love the track. I absolutely love the track. But, listen, when it comes to Tool, as they do on quite a few of their albums, especially like 10,000 Days with Rosetta Stone, and maybe kind of with the track Third Eye, they saved the best for last. No question about that. The last track on this album is called Tempest, or if you want to get technical, it's actually called Seven Empest. But this is a 50-story tall monster of a track on this album. It's the longest one, almost 16 minutes in length, and it doesn't waste any time just obliterating you with its music. Absolutely in your face, balls to the wall, at one point almost thrash metal like sounding. It's actually insane for Tool. Well, not really. In a way, this is like Fear Inoculum's version of Rosetta Stone, where it's a long ass track, but basically every minute of it is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, this thing's 15 minutes, and after like the first minute, it's just like a guitar riff, a simple guitar line going on. It quickly emerges into a raging beast of guitar in drums and bass. Maynard sounds pissed off. He sounds like this is the time in the album where he actually sounds angry and he's ready to fight somebody, honestly. Like, this is insane. And like I said, this lasts for essentially the entirety of the song. They don't really slow down. There's a couple little lulls here and there maybe, but then they ramp it back up full speed, in your face, Christian balls to the wall. I love it. I absolutely love this track so much just for that alone. The guitar work is fantastic. The solos just sound so damn good. Tool definitely released one of the best tracks of 2019 here. No question about that. You'll, at an end of the year list for best songs of 2019, I can guarantee you that Tempest from Tool is going to be on that list. And honestly, there's a couple other songs on here that might be on that list from this album alone. So we'll have to see. But when it comes to these 7 actual songs, including Chocolate Chip Trip, I am in absolute love with this project. These 7 tracks, in my opinion, are damn near perfect. Besides parts of Descending and maybe some slight parts of Pneuma, maybe, and maybe a little bit of Fear Inoculum. But honestly, besides that, those songs are still easily fantastic, even with those slight problems. And even as almost close to perfect as those are, this album still is definitely not perfect. This album also has interludes, and 2 of the interludes that are on this thing are dumb. Straight dumb. And I don't even know if I can even call them bad. They're just dumb, because they make no sense at all with this project. And yes, I know, Tool, they've done interludes before on their albums, but at least they kept in tone with what's been going on in the album so far. Or either that, or they become slightly goofy and honestly kind of funny and have like a humor to it. These just don't fit or make sense at all. And the main 2 that I'm talking about, because there's one of them called Legion Inoculant, is actually pretty dark sounding, and it actually kind of does go with what's been going on, because it comes right after Invincible and is leading to Descending. And it actually is a nice transitional track from Invincible to Descending. But the tracks Latani Contre La Pure and Mockingbeat, and keep in mind, Mockingbeat ends this album. You have this rager like Tempest, and you're gonna end the album with fucking Mockingbeat? What are you doing? It is a 2-minute pointless interlude, or not an interlude anymore. What the hell would you call it? Because it's not going into something. It's the exit. Outerlude? Is that even a word? Probably not. But it's pointless. It's actually pointless. It doesn't add any feeling to the album whatsoever. It's just like a cool down thing maybe. And maybe that's what it's supposed to be. It just still sounds awful. It doesn't sound good. And again, I think I'm more mad at that track than anything. That I'm actually mad at the other track there, La Pure, the French one. I don't know. I just don't know why these these 2 interludes, exist, because they ruin the flow of this album, which up to this point was pretty damn near perfect. And I don't know why Tool didn't like re-listen to those and think, oh, maybe these don't fit too well with this, this album, or it doesn't really fit well after this particular track. It just I don't know if I like it. No, they just said, fuck it. It's been 13 years. Put the fucking interludes on the record. See what the hell happens. And what you get now is an album that's kind of slightly ruined because of a couple of these really, really, really bad interludes. So I don't know. I'm kind of mad that they did that. But overall, alright, I'm just going to say overall, I do love this project. I have listened to it a lot, and I'm going to continue listening to it a lot. I love the actual songs on here to no end. And again, with the interludes sounding crappy, ruining the flow of the album, yeah, it actually does hurt the album a little bit. It really does. So, Tool, Fear Inoculum, after 13 years of waiting, they at least had the courtesy to give us an album that was a 9 out of 10. And I think that is all I have to say about that. So, that is it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell, whatever you want to fucking do. I mean, you get notified when I release a video, but you get any time of the day to watch it. You know, if you really pay attention, you'll just search my channel up at night and watch my reviews, right? Because that's how people do it. Well, anyways, basically, ask me things about this album. Honestly, ask me about Tool. Ask me anything in the comments. Because I could go on and on about Tool for days. Honestly, I absolutely love the band, and I do like this album. But in all honesty, after these 13 years, just in the comments, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that this album was worth after 13 years, or did you let the hype get to your head, or do you think that this is their weakest album yet? Talk to me in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Just don't be an asshole. Keep it civil. All that good stuff. Man, I don't have any more to say. So thank you all so much for watching, and please have a nice day.